Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's talk about some of the things we've been hearing. Out on the road last week, spending the majority of this week so far talking to clients and hearing a lot of the same thing, especially with new clients, right? It seems like they're all experiencing the same thing, which I guess is good for us, but more importantly, it kind of tells us where the industry's at. There's still such a preponderance of every agency going to dealers and telling them put all your money in low funnel search. And obviously our opinion is a little bit different, being focused on omni-channel. But that aside, to be in low funnel search, you have to be in a market that's demand heavy. People raising their hand saying, "I want to buy a car," to take all the technology and everything out of it. When was the last time we saw a really heavy, people saying, "I need a car now"? It's been a while. I mean, where's the economy? Interest rates, just affordability, all these different things that are been facing us for a while. We're just not there. So when we take on new clients, and I'm telling you, seeing people that are 90% of their budget in low funnel search, that is a miss.
Mm,
That's a big miss. That's like if you think about the stock market, that's like buying high and selling
yeah,
low. Don't
yeah,
want to do that.
yeah,
So
exactly.
let's start there and let's kind of share, kind of what we're seeing, what we think, and what we think, this year is going to look like.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Dave. The economy, I think, is the big one, right? You look at the adoption of search in automotive. It makes complete sense. The OEMs generate demand or create demand. Tier three captures it. But when you start to look at the economics of everything, and we started looking at the data internally, and we had conversations about this, and we were looking at, we started receiving several calls in December. Hey, you know what? It's just seems very, very quiet for December. It's not as busy as we thought it would be. People are starting to panic, right? They're getting a little nervous. Obviously, at the end of the month, the last 4 or 5 days of the month, it kind of went from zero to hero very quickly. But what we saw was, on average, depending on what brand you were with, but it was anywhere between 30 to almost at the highest levels were like 70% declines in demand for a specific product year over year. So when we looked at December 23 versus December 22, the amount of people physically out there, and I'll say demand as in typing in long tail year, make, model
Hmm.
search for a new car, was down 30 to 75%, like on the max. And we looked at that and we were like, well, hold on. Is this a place where we need to start spending more money? We started putting in more money, right? We start getting calls from dealers. Dealers are concerned. It's December. Let's pump more money into low funnel. It seems like the logical place to be. But all we saw was acquisition costs go up, CPC go up, search impression share, yes, increase, but we were already at an average of around 65%. So it didn't need any more money. And as a result, we might have underspent on a few accounts just because, look, like the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. There wasn't anything there. Meta is a very difficult place to be in December. There's so many brands pumping in a ton of money. So the importance for having more than one channel as a strategy is just key. I mean, I'm sure you had conversations on it, Dave. What's kind of your take, and how do you think on the matter?
Well, I mean, I think I actually rewind a little even before that. I mean, the way that we're looking at data and being predictive about it, we knew months before we got to the fourth quarter that it was going to be tough. And we
Mm-hmm.
knew that the trend in the traffic was looking, a little bit dire. So we started looking at, and this is the value of omnichannel, right? We knew that the demand wasn't going to be there. So we had to do everything we could to acquire customers. I mean, this is something that we were doing back in COVID, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we were looking at where do we need to be? What type of message did we need to have to try to get some people identified? And then once we found them, then what we have to do is retarget them and put them on a variety of different channels, get to those folks and continue to message. So when we got to the fourth quarter, our clients had someone to talk to.
Yeah,
If we know that the fourth quarter is going to be rough, I mean, the only other option is you throw up your hands up in the air and say, guys, it's going to be rough. Have fun. We'll put you in CPO used and fixed.
yeah,
That's not good enough, right?
no,
So, we do what we can to create opportunities for them, knowing that if we deliver the quality traffic, they'll take advantage of it. And that's essentially what happened. I mean, we had a pretty good showing for our clients, as the year wrapped. Had we not had the foresight to see that, I think things would have been pretty difficult. I mean,
100%.
the demand for a lot of the brands of clients that we work with, as you said, was not there. So that's the importance of being in the right place with the right messaging, and we'll probably get into creative here at some point because that's huge too. But you got to identify it early and make the right moves before you're there, with not many options.
Yeah, yeah, and I think expanding on that, I think it's just when we think about having multiple channels. I think you alluded to it with retargeting and kind of other aspects. I think a lot of folks go out and just capture demand. I think that's the vast majority of marketing, right? We go out, we try to get a lead, we try to get search impression share, we try to be in Google, we just try to get that last moment. But our clients specifically, and we do more than just automotive, but let's just stick on automotive here for a second. Our clients, they have the ability to generate demand. They can create it, right? And it's not necessarily their obligation to do that. The brand is supposed to do that if they're selling a specific new model or anything else. Sure, they're going to go out and start generating awareness, and then you can capture that demand. But to create demand in your own market, start being a dealership that says something different. Get out there with unique selling points and value propositions that might actually add value. You never know, someone who was looking for Model X is now buying Model Y because your value points at your dealership were just so strong compared to the other one. One was subpar experience with great customer service and in business for 50 years. And the other one's like lifetime warranty, lifetime powertrain warranty, unlimited car washes, a loaner car every time, no exception, in and out in an hour. I might change my vehicle brand in today's world because of something like that. So when you have that, you've got to execute on multiple channels. It's not always going to be in demand. No one's jumping out of their seat right now to buy a car or lease a car at 10% or standard rate and lease and money factor. Just no one's doing it. Where do you got to
Yeah.
be?
Well, so
You
what you're hitting on is a couple of things. I mean, one, the value of creative, right? So you have to get those messages out, and you have to have something to say,
bingo.
because
Yep.
I mean, where has incentives been? I mean, when we started this company, we had incentives on every vehicle in stock, and it got to the point where the dealers came to us and said, "Cut it out! Like we don't want to show these offers." So now it's something that we turn on or off depending on what the offers are and what the client wants. So it's less about that, and it's more about what's your why buys as a dealer, what makes you unique to the point Alex just made. So the flexibility on creative is huge, and
Huge.
it's such a cliche to say right message, right place, right time, but it's the truth. I mean, we do our own market research, and one of the things, or the three like universal truths that we find is customers shop multiple brands. Social is huge in the purchase decision, and streaming is growing at an increasing rate. Those might not sound, earth shattering, but I'm telling you, we looked all over the country, multiple brands, and those things pop up every single time, which essentially means when we look at some of the brands we work with and we look at the consideration set of where they fall when someone buys one of their competitors, a lot of them aren't even in the top 3 or 4. And the reason is because of the three things I just mentioned. They're just not, their dealers are not where they need to be to talk to the people that should be their customers, certainly the ones that are losing. So that's a huge piece. Like creative is so important. You have to get to those people where they like to spend their time. I mean, what do all of us do at night? We're probably sitting there on the couch watching a streaming channel, and we're on our phone on social channels, and that is the profile. That's the customer for many, many brands.
Yeah. You pegged it. I mean, you absolutely pegged it, Dave. It's obvious we share the same opinion on this,
Yeah,
being
well,
co-founders of the company, but I think we're just trying to add value to the general audience here, which is just saying like content and creative expands the opportunity. Having good creative, having good video, static imagery, display, whatever you want to call it, it expands your opportunity to get out of this $3 to $4 per click rut per user. In instances of low demand, like we've been seeing, and it's not just our vertical, it's every vertical. People are being a little bit more hesitant on purchasing things. You'll see a lot more. I mean, heck, look at just in general what you're doing in your own life right now. As far as, I mean, I know we're looking at it, right? Looking at our grocery expenses, looking at our cost expenses,
mhm.
just trying to be a little bit more manageable about these things. And people are that way. And so we need to do the same thing from a marketing standpoint. There's got to be a lot more financial analysis, rigorous financial analysis on, all right, I'm going to spend $3 to $4 on this click that may or may not convert. But I could also take that $3 to $4. I could put a nice video behind it. I could talk to 1,000 people. What would I want to say? How would I want to say it? I had a talk about this yesterday when we were talking about native audiences and certain platforms. That's why we're on all these channels, because when the indicators from our MMM reporting that we look at the correlation coefficients between outcomes and all the spend that's going on in the channel. We're looking at all sorts of different things. And when it starts to tell us, hey, you've capped out, don't spend any more money here, we don't. We move it. And we put it into places like Meta, TikTok, Pinterest, Amazon, Hulu, Reddit, Nextdoor, Spotify. We'll find anything and everything that we feel like is the right value at that time. And so everyone in the industry needs to take a good hard look at their strategy and configure two things. A, is all I'm doing spending money in Google search, yes or no? And B, do I have something salient to say to the market about my business and business practice? And if you can answer both those questions, and let's say A is yes and B is yes, you need to take a look at who is doing Google search, and you need to start looking at different options that allow for different platforms, and get those messages out there about your business, and start talking about your transparency, your speed, your efficacy, your pricing supremacy, whatever it is that you want to talk about. It needs to get out there. So we consider it, and your viewpoints might be different, but our viewpoints are this: Google is tactical. It will always be tactical. We are firmly in the camp of 35 to 40% of a total mix. That's just who we are. We believe in that. If you believe in that, great. We're all singing to the same tune, but that's all it is. And the rest of the channels are there. We don't want to call them ancillary because some of them play key roles, and our MMMs will show statistically that some of those channels are better in certain instances of month, whether or not they're in a heavy research phase or a demand phase. We'll get into that. Dave and I will talk about kind of how we establish that. But either way, it's important that we all take a look at that and say, is search the only place I need to be in 2024? And does my business have something valuable to say? And if it does, get out there, start talking about it, put it in places, use the native audiences I talked about. It's just an important thing to be. I know that's our viewpoints. I know you share the same feelings, but Dave, yeah. I'm sure you've got some comments to that.
Well, I mean, the bow I want to put on it is, here's the fallacy about, being in all these places. It does not cost more money. Not at all. And Alex hit it on a little bit, but point. Instead of paying, a high dollar per click, you can get, half that and get thousands of people, get the impressions and get in front of, a bunch of different people that once we get them, then we retarget them. So it's a much more efficient and effective strategy. And a lot of times, we may be moving, hundreds of dollars to get the return. So the nice thing is we have it nailed down with our MMM. We know how much we need to spend on any of these different places to get the return we're looking for. So it's effective, it's efficient. The other thing we have is that's also really important is the data. Being on all these different channels, you get really, really good data. So we can get surgical when we need to find certain folks or solve certain problems. So there's really a lot of important things that we get out of not only finding people and having a robust strategy and getting incremental performance, because that's what it's about. I mean, the name of our company, two things: we're forward looking and we focus on profitability. So it's not important to us to spend a lot of time on vanity metrics or talk about what happened last month. Like, we don't do that. Like, what's happening this weekend, next week, next quarter? Where do you need to be and why? And one is, how are we going to sell you more cars? And 1A is, how are we going to do that profitably?
Yeah.
So
I think
it's all about bottom line results.
I think we get into that in our next session, Dave. We start talking about how we look at that and maybe share some insight in how we can kind of predict what's going on in the future and how we do that. So that's it from us here at Prophecy Digital, to the co-founders here. And, like us, follow us for a little bit more of this type of content. We'll be doing this once a week, just to kind of get together and, just talk about the general market at hand, what's going on, how we're approaching it. Hopefully it provides value in your day to day. And I don't know if you had anything closed, Dave.
Yeah, no, I mean, would love to continue the discussion. If there's people out there that disagree, hey, let's have a debate. Let's talk about it. We're not above hearing other people's opinions. We just believe strongly in what we think is important and the performance we're able to generate out of it. And, it's all about better performance for the dealers. Simple as
Love
that.
it. Love it. All right. Thanks all
All
for
right. Have a great
listening.
day, everyone.
Like and follow for more.